Hi, everybody, and welcome. It's great to see so many people here. It's great to hear all the chatter because it means that people meet in other spaces. And our ability to meet in lots of spaces and form connections in our small town of San Francisco and our slightly larger town of the Bay Area, but also in all of our commitments of our values, is going to be vital, as it always has been, but particularly vital as we move forward into the world that unfolds before us. So I'm glad to hear all of it. But why don't you all find a seat? There's food and drinks. So if your blood sugar is dropping, please go get something to raise it up. And if you need a little caffeine or a little herbal joy, please go get yourself a cup of tea or coffee. I am Vanessa Southern. I'm the senior minister of the First Unitarian Universalist Society of San Francisco, and I'm very happy to welcome you all here to our center, which we hope is always a place of civic engagement and community building, not just for our church community, but for the larger communities that we serve and that we love to gather and support in this third space that we maintain for just these moments. This past year, I want to tell you a little bit about Unitarian Universalism. It's mandated that every so many years we have to review the way we state what it is we believe. And so we just went through that process and met for our annual convention last year. And the new statement that we made is depicted like a flower with petals and then something at the center, and the petals are each the name of a value. One of those was a commitment to interdependence, which we articulated in part as a shared promise to protect Earth and all beings from exploitation, to create and nurture sustainable relationships of care and respect, mutuality and justice, and work to repair harm and damaged relationships. One of the other petals was justice, a commitment to justice, including the promise to dismantle racism and all forms of systematic oppression. And the value at the center, the heart of our values, the one from which all the others spring, was love. Love was what demanded the rest. Love is what demands the rest. It is the same set of values, I'm imagining, that many of you have, though you come from different religious traditions or philosophical foundations in the values that you claim as your own and then commit to live in the world. And I imagine it's values like these that bring you into spaces like this in moments like this. What the worth and dignity of all people and our shared commitment to humanity demands. So I welcome you here as we all, because of these values, continue the conversation as we did at our annual gathering of one particular place that these values ask us to engage, which is in this urgent question of how to unravel from the nightmare of the last year, 2 months, and 7 days, and all that preceded and set the stage for it to create what speaks more to the ideals that we have, namely coexistence, peace, the flourishing of all peoples in Palestine and Israel as much as anywhere else that we cast our eyes and our hearts and our hands and plow ourselves into the world. I am grateful then, very grateful to Rula Daoud and Alongli Green, the leaders of Standing Together, who I was lucky to hear from a little bit before tonight, and to all who worked to bring together this evening. And I don't know all of you, though I do know the leaders of our own human rights working group here, Bruce Neuberger, Dolores Perez Heilbrunn, and Jeff Peckrell, among others from this congregation who helped make this possible. But to all of you who did, thank you. And all of you who are here, thank you. So I also want to welcome Rabbi Kat Davis, too, from Beit Tikkun Synagogue, and just recognize all of the people who are from other religious traditions who are here tonight out of a shared commitment to this work and conversation. So welcome. When I was walking down the street once in New York City, where I lived from the age of 8 onward, and I was talking, passionately proclaiming about something that had me concerned in the world, talking to a friend, a woman walked by and must have heard what I was saying because she stopped, turned around, put her hand on my shoulder and said, "From your mouth to God's ears, darling. From your mouth to God's ears." So welcome to the conversation tonight, and from our mouths to God's ears. Welcome.
Okay. Hi, I'm Mari Esther Magaloni Ramos. I'm a worship associate here at UUSF. It's one of the honors of my life, honestly. I'm Mexican. I'm from Texas and Tamaulipas, a place that knows the violence and sorrow and the despair of stolen land and arbitrarily constructed borders that separate people who are family. Borders that criminalize our bond to each other and to our ancestral lands. It is said that the Mexican is the incarnation of the conqueror and the conquered. There's a certain inevitability in that for me. Human history is not a rom-com, and judging from the recent embrace of tyranny and nationalism here and in the world right now, I'm not sure that we will ever be able to avoid this hard work of overcoming. And yet I stand here today, a Mexican, una mexicana, the conquered and the conqueror together in one body with one beating heart. I've given life to beating hearts. I hope that my presence here today can be a reminder that the future will incarnate, and that in spite of the pain of the present, it is capable of embodying and generating love, justice, hope, mercy, peace, and joy. It is in this spirit of hope for the future that, and in gratitude for the courageous work that you are doing right now, and for Rula and Alan Lee, the work that you're doing, thank you, that I offer a prayer from the indigenous side of my ancestry, from the original Nahuatl. May its spirit free the progression of love and peace from the clutches of history. I release my parents from the feeling that they have failed with me. I release my children from the need to make me proud so that they can write their own ways according to their hearts. I release my partner from the obligation to make me feel complete. Gracias a la vida. Adelante. Amen.
Thank you, Vanessa and Mari, for your beautiful words and for welcoming all of us here to this very special space. My name is Robert Ungar. Most people call me Rob. I'm part of SF Bay for Peace, a group of anti-occupation activists who have been organizing here mostly in the past year. Most of us are from Israel or connected to Israel in some point, and we've organized vigils and rallies, art events and actions to call to stop the war, to return the hostages, and for a long-term diplomatic solution in Israel and Palestine. I lived in Tel Aviv until 7 years ago, and I come from a background of design and architecture. And I think, to me, this opportunity to be hosting our guest today is a really special moment to tie all those things together. I want to introduce Rula Daoud and Alon Green, the co-leaders of Standing Together. Our talk today will revolve around a Q&A with our guests. I'll get started, and then we'll take some questions from the audience. You should have received an index card, and if you haven't, there are some index cards on the table in the entrance and pens. So if you have questions, write them down and pass them on to Yael, which is right over there, raising her hand and waving at you. And yeah, Karen is over there on this side. Perfect. So you can pass the questions to them, and they'll bring them over to here. I assume some of you are here to hear about the values and the positions of Standing Together, and we'll touch upon that. Personally, I believe actions speak louder than words, so I'm mostly interested in the mechanics of activism, on how to bridge a polarized society, and I'll gear my questions towards that. So first I'll introduce our guests. Alon Green, he's a national co-director of Standing Together, a member of its elected leadership, and a Jewish citizen of Israel. He's a lifelong activist. Green began agitating for social change as a teenager, founder of Israel's first national waiters union. He was also a prominent leader in Israel's 2011 social protest movement, campaigning against economic inequality, and a key advisor to longtime progressive Knesset, which is an Israeli parliament member, Dov Hanin. In 2015, he co-founded Standing Together and has since led the movement through numerous campaigns against war and occupation and for peace, equality, and social justice. Alongside Daoud, he was recently featured as one of Time magazine's 100 Emerging Global Leaders for 2024. Welcome, Alon. And Rula Daoud is the national co-director of Standing Together, a member of its elected leadership, and a Palestinian citizen of Israel. Born and raised in the Galilee village of Kfar Yassif, Rula began her professional life as a speech pathologist before becoming a committed political activist, organizing around Jewish-Arab partnership in Israel's mixed cities. Since joining Standing Together in late 2010s, Daoud's political and administrative expertise has played a critical role in the movement's dramatic growth and success. Alongside Green, she was recently featured as one of Time magazine's 100 Emerging Global Leaders for 2024. Welcome, Rula. So I thought I would start with giving a general context to Standing Together. First, I want to ask you, who has been to a talk or an event with Standing Together in the past? All right, nice. So welcome back, everybody. And for those of you who is the first time, we're happy to be here. Happy that you're here. Also happy to be here. But I'll give it quick context for the general idea of Standing Together so we can actually go deeper into the details. So Standing Together is a grassroots movement active in Israel and Palestine, advocating for peace, equality, and social justice. It emerged in 2015 from a coalition of activists, and since then ran multiple campaigns around ending the occupation, raising minimum wage, limiting carbon emissions. Most recently, some of the campaigns that sparked attention globally were a campaign to hold protective presence in road junctions in the West Bank, allowing aid trucks and their drivers to safely pass settler protests that tried to block them, ongoing protests to stop the war, and collecting food from civilians and sending it to Gaza. So I'd like to start with a quick introduction to the movement in your voices. Since October 7th is such a turning point, maybe I'd like to kind of break it up to two and ask, maybe Alon, you can start. by describing some of the earlier days of standing together, some of the campaigns and actions that you've led before October 7th, and later we'll go to the past year with you, Wula. So.
All right. Hi, good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming. We are really happy to be here, even though it's been a tough 2 weeks, and we've been traveling a lot, and we're here only for 16 hours in San Francisco. But before going to the past and tell you how Standing Together started and what is the organizing principles of Standing Together, I do want to speak about the right here, right now, and to say that it is extremely important to us to say at the beginning that we are here in the US to bring our voice from Palestine and Israel to call for a ceasefire right now, a permanent ceasefire in Gaza, ending the killing, ending the starvation, ending the destruction, and yes, releasing the Israeli hostages, bringing them back home to their families, and yes, ending the Israeli occupation in the West Bank, achieving a reality of Israeli-Palestinian peace where all people on the land are equal, free, and independent. These principles, these demands are the only possible way to move forward. After 14 months of despair and grief and sorrow, months where people really lost their loved ones, people lost any hope for a future on this land, it is tough to exist right now in Gaza. It is tough to exist in the West Bank, but it's also tough in different ways to also exist in Israel. And out of these miserable realities that are different and not symmetrical, and Standing Together organizes upon this acknowledgement that we don't experience symmetric realities. We don't suffer and we don't pay the same prices. But upon the understanding that we all pay some kind of a price for this reality, we organize for a shared future where we are all equal and independent and free. And this is maybe the beginning point of Standing Together. Where does this voice exist in our society? We are talking about right now maybe the 15th war in a decade and a half between Israel and Gaza. Each time they promise us, this time we're going to win, this time we're going to bring safety. But all that happens is more Palestinians die. Right now we're talking about 45,000 Palestinians that are declared dead in Gaza. 15,000 of them are children. But it's not the first war, right? In 2014, 2,000 Palestinians lost their lives. A lot of them were children. And we asked ourselves, why? Why do we need to live in these cycles of ongoing wars? Why don't we see some political forces, some political leaders coming to us as Israelis, telling us what existed until now will be different. What we promise you is something completely different. Not moving from one war to the other and in the middle expanding the occupations, building more hatred between the people, but actually moving to the direction of saying, this reality is bad to all of us. This reality can end with a peaceful resolution. This reality can, turn into different directions. And after suffering from the war of 2014 and the aftermath of 2015, what was called in our society the Knifers Intifada, where a lot of stabbing attacks happened, we decided that we do need to take this responsibility of raising this voice as a beginning point upon ourselves. If no political leader in Israel, if no political party does it, we need to do it ourselves. And we started organizing rallies of both Jews and Palestinians. At the beginning in Jerusalem, where it was the toughest, it was very tense, it was very violent, saying, yes, we can stand together, Jews and Palestinians within our society, but also Israelis and Palestinians from across the sides of the Green Line. And we can demand an end to the occupation, we can demand peace, we can demand a reality where racism and incitement do not control our streets. And it was tough. It was tough to raise this voice, but we felt that this is something we need to do after so much death. We didn't know we're going to face even more death, right? But we felt we must do it and we must organize. We moved from one city to the other. We continued organizing a lot of rallies and demonstrations. We saw thousands of people are coming with us. And then we decided it's not enough to mobilize people. It's not enough to just call people to come to a rally or a demonstration. We need to organize. We need to deeply and consistently organize and call people to become part of a political home that builds power within our society around those interests, around those values. And I think that was the beginning of standing together. We couldn't know that actually it's going to become a historic role of standing in a time where humanity is being pushed aside, where our leaders are calling us to lose our humanity. And then we stand together, Jews and Palestinians in our society, and insist on this humanity together. We couldn't know, but we are very proud of this role.
So this is how Standing Together came to be, and I want to ask you, Rula, about the current moment in time. Like, what are some of the actions that you have taken and been a part of in the past 14 months?
Yeah. So, well, Alonli spoke about how we started as a movement and how we understood that it is not enough to just mobilize people in the streets. We need to build power. And that is why we started to organize people in different places all over the country. And today we have chapters of activists who work together, who go out to the streets together, but also think of what kind of struggles also locally should we be leading in order to really have and achieve a society that is equal to all of its people. And it is very important also to understand and emphasize that if we didn't really have a grassroots movement, if we didn't have thousands of people with us, both Jews and Palestinians, we wouldn't be able to stand up after the 7th of October and speak up and demand a ceasefire, an end to this war, and a deal. Because when the 7th of October happened, and I do want to, excuse me if I'm going to go to more personal places, but it is very important to understand that the 7th of October was a day that many people woke up and were at the beginning, I don't know if the word amazed is the right one, but didn't really understand what was happening. I woke up in my home in Jaffa to sirens at 6:30, exactly. And the sirens meant that there were missiles coming from Gaza. And the place we live in, when there is a war coming, we know a war is happening because there's a buildup. They talk about it before politicians start saying many things, and you know that there's going to be a war. Israel is going to be bombing Gaza, and Hamas is going to be firing some missiles to Israel. But the 7th of October was different. And when we woke up to sirens, one after another, after another, after another, and nobody was speaking, not even one politician in the Israeli government or even one media about what was happening, it was more puzzling for people. And the next thing happened after 2-3 hours is that everybody started taking, his phone and looking into social media and seeing the images from the south when Hamas attacked. And it was painful to many people because a lot of the people we know lost families and friends in the 7th of October. And it was much more painful because we understood the retaliation of our government against the people in Gaza. And it started. Bombs were sent, dropped. People start being killed, massacred on both sides. And the pain was so huge, and many people felt that there's nothing we can do. Us, as a movement that has both people, some who've lost their friends in the south, some who've lost relatives and families in Gaza, decided we need to meet and we need to understand what do we need to do. The first thing we did 3 days was to assemble our people in one meeting, a Zoom meeting, because there was nobody out in the streets. And we gave a place to the fear, the pain, to understand that it is a mutual pain for all of us. And that act itself, as much as it was simple, it gave us also the power to understand that we needed to do something different. So the day after, what we did was to demand a political solution, and we said we need a deal right now, because we know where this war is going to. Nobody thought it's going to be going to a 14 months of war, but we knew the retaliation upon people in Gaza is going to be so massive that it's going to end up with many people being killed. And it happened. So we decided that we need to bring a voice that is very different from the voice that our government is saying. We know and we see and we live in a government that is not ashamed to speak of genocidal ambitions, that it's not afraid to say that Gaza should be flattened, that it's not ashamed to say that there is no innocent people in Gaza. That is the government that is leading the people who live in Israel right now. And that was the only voice, and still the only very loud voice, speaking. And we understood we needed to give a competition. We needed to do something different, because it cannot be that the only voice, loud and clear, is that voice of messianic and fascist people. So we went out to the streets, we demanded a deal, we went out into demonstrations, we demanded a ceasefire to be done, and we kept on going to the streets, and we still do it until this day in the same demand. A ceasefire, a stop to this war, a hostage deal, because these are the things that must be done right now in order to stop the destruction, the pain, the killing, and the starvation that is happening right now in Gaza. And that is the voice we held and still holding for 14 months. And through these months, we understood that we need to build a political power from within our people, because we understand the reality that we live in. There is an hegemonic force. There is a hand that is much more powerful, and it is the hand of Israel, the government and the society. And if this war must stop, the demand must come also from the people within Israel, from the Israeli society. So we went out in solidarity groups to de-escalate if there would be any violence in our streets. We opened hotlines for students, especially Palestinian students in campuses who were persecuted immediately after the 7th of October, just for uploading a black profile picture. And we had demonstrations each and every week outside in the streets, but also we understood that we needed to do something more in order to show that within the society that we live, there are more people demanding an end to this war than what is shown, what people really think. So we started a campaign just in August of collecting humanitarian aid to Gaza, because we wanted to do something political that can be taken as something humanitarian, but at the same time political, saying we do not agree to the starvation in Gaza. And we started collecting humanitarian aid. We moved from different localities, and at the end of a month of thousands of people coming and donating food, we were able to collect 400 trucks of food and hygienic product to women and babies. And actually, today we are celebrating more than 100 trucks going into Gaza. And by doing that, thank you. And by doing that, the campaigns going out to the streets, having billboards in our streets, showing what was really happening in Gaza, we were able to strengthen a voice that it speaks about who is really suffering from this war and what must be done right now. And what we must do, and our work back home, is to build a political power, to give a different voice to the people living in Israel in order to demand a stop to this war, but not just that, to demand from our politicians to have real solutions. And the only real solution is stopping this war, ending the occupation, understanding that my people deserve their own independence in the same way that people who live in Israel deserve their own security. And this can be done only by having a true and real Israeli-Palestinian peace. And that is what we do for 14 continuous months.
So you've touched upon different strategies, different ways how to approach the bigger issues you're trying to resolve. And I know that on your website and in your making of your movement, you have taken the time to take a step up, take a step out, and create a theory of change. And reading that document, you can really see that there's a lot of thought and a lot of voices that were brought into it. So I want to ask you about how do you plan to end the occupation? How do you fight inequality? And how do you make people in Israel and Palestine live safely and securely? How do you change?
Yes.
Whoever, yeah, let's do one word.
Well, it's a good question, because when we look at our society, when we look at the reality that we face from both sides, the Israeli or the Palestinians, we understand that it is long years that it's still going on, right? There are a lot of factors in our reality that are actually just deepening, right? The occupation is becoming deeper. The Jewish supremacy in our land becomes stronger. Just a few years ago, in 2018, a law was legislated in Israel, the national state law, declaring that Jewish people in Israel are first-class citizens and Palestinian citizens in Israel are second-class citizens. Arabic was a formal language until then, and it was degraded into being not a formal language after that. So we see that actually reality doesn't stop, right? It doesn't stop with those very regressive forces saying we're satisfied with having 400,000 people in the settlements and having this set of laws that are declaring this and that. No, they keep on moving. And that is a question of power. They have a lot of power. But you know what? They're not the majority. They're not the majority of the Israeli people. Settlers in our society are 5% of the entire Israeli population. How many percent do they hold in parliament? Almost 20%. How many percent do they hold in government? More than 20%. How is it possible that such a small minority hold such big political power? These are good questions to ask. I think what we try to ask ourselves is how do we not just condemn reality, not just point on the things that we don't want to see in reality, not just shout at the things or the people we hate or don't, want to see that are happening in our reality, but how do we actually change reality? We are a movement that takes the responsibility upon ourselves of changing the reality, and we understand that we need power to do so. So one of the basic things we do is to organize people, to really go to the people, to the society we're part of, and come to the people and organize them and mobilize them. And in order to do so, we can't expect, and I know I might say something that might annoy some people, but we can't expect the Israeli society to wake up one morning and say, you know what? This whole occupation and racism and stuff, it's not moral. Yeah, it's not moral, so I'm moving to stand in solidarity with Palestinians, right? No society will do that. Morality and solidarity is something amazing, and we're proud to say that we're standing in solidarity with Palestinians, right? But people also have interests. People also have societies. And what we are doing upon our theory of change is to look at the interests of people and ask who profits? Who profits out of the occupation? Who profits out of 14 months of war? Do I, as an Israeli citizen, my family, my society, as a Jewish person, do we benefit out of 15,000 children that are dead? If someone here in this room will say yes, they are delusional. Do we profit from building new settlements in Gaza? The answer is no. Someone do profit, but they are a minority. And if we are able to connect standing in solidarity with Palestinians with fighting over our own self-interest, we can build politics that is hegemonic. And this is what we're trying to do. Not to stand in, and tell ourselves we stood in the right side of history. Not to pat ourselves on the back and say we have the moralities. No, we are working in the field of politics, and that means building power. And in order to do so, we need to organize people upon their self-interest and to form it into a majority. And yes, it means working also with people that do not hold the same values as us. If I want to get to the end of this room, I cannot just jump from here to there, right? I need to have some steps on the way. This is strategy. Our strategy is working with people and forming coalitions, which means, coalition is necessarily not working with yourself, with people who hold different values, different ideas, different politics. It means being, taking and becoming a bit messy. It means doing compromises. It means also asking where are people at? Who are the people you're trying to convince? How do you move them? And yes, it also means standing in front of the street, not assimilating in the street if the street wants to see racism or wants to say kill them all. No, standing in front of the streets and leading the street, but also not walking 20 miles in front of the streets where no one can hear you or see you. And it is important. All these are a few principles of our theory of change that we feel allowed us in these 14 months, which has been terrible in all possible ways. We also faced a lot of persecution ourselves, threats, needed to move apartments at some times because of political violence that is being directed at us. But this allowed us, our belief in the interests of the people, our compassion to our own people, our ability to see the tragedy, the sorrow, the grief of people and understand it, and not to dislocate ourselves from our society, but actually to be an internal force in our society. This allows us to bring Palestinians and Jewish people from very different realities and narratives, people that can wake up in the morning, sometimes in the same building. We have mixed cities, right? They can live in the same building in Haifa. And in one floor, they can turn on their Instagram in the morning, being Palestinians, and see stories of videos of rebels, of mothers shouting their lungs out because their family has been eradicated from the face of the earth because one person in Israel pushed a button and a bomb was dropped on their family. And that will be their reality, what they will see. And in the second floor, a Jewish person will wake up in the morning, turning on their Instagram, seeing families of hostages crying, shouting at ministers in Israel to bring back their mothers and fathers and sons and daughters, talking, seeing stories about the Nova Music Festival and how people are still traumatic from that, stories from the massacre of Hamas on October 7th, and that will be their reality. And we need to understand both realities exist on the same time, and we are the bridge to bring those realities together and to bring those people together. And this is the only way to operate in such a complicated society like the Israeli society that is not only Jewish, it is not only Palestinian, it's mixed. And you know what? No one can solve what is going on in our land without the people living in it. And, looking at the Israeli society and understand that it exists, even though some people can come and criticize, calling us normalizers, calling us, people that are acknowledging the existence of Israel. Israel exists and Israel has a society. You cannot bypass the people. And understanding that, understanding who are the people that live in our society, that's a key part of changing the reality on our land. Thanks.
Okay, I have two more questions, and then I'll open up to questions from the audience. For you, Rula, I want to ask you about, we talk a lot about change, wanting to bring in a new reality to create something new. But I also want to kind of take a conservative approach and ask you, what are you wanting to save? What are you fighting for that you want to keep, that you want to save?
Question. It is a very good question. Look, when we're back home, it is a fight over our existence, basically. It is the right for us to exist in a society that is, in a government that is not a justice government, in too many inequalities between the both of us. It is a fight for something better, okay? Because we deserve something better. But it is really a fight for our existence back home. When we come here and we talk about, home, we always say home, 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 home. This is the home, my home, this is Alonli's home. We don't really have another home. It is home. Like, we were born into that place. We love it. We want it to look different. The path towards changing, and having a whole different paradigm within our society is very difficult. It's not an easy. You see us sitting in here, and we're partners. Okay, we wake up each and every day. We think, we have strategy. We understand what we want to do and how to do it. This is a partnership, but it's a partnership within a system that looks at us in a different way. We're not equal. So the fight is not just a fight of an existence, but it's a fight to have a place and a society where both of us are really equal, where both of us first-class citizens, where both of us are not afraid of saying who we are, our identities as a Palestinian, as Jewish, and where both of us can really walk in the streets and not be afraid of being just arrested just because we said something wrong. It is a fight to having, I would also say it in a dream, maybe a dream that I have many times. It is a fight for somehow belonging, because we don't really have it. We are, this Jew and this Palestinian, we are sometimes looked as outcasts because we dream of many big things in a system that's really not equal, in a country that identifies itself as Jewish and democratic, which doesn't really go with one another. So when we go out in the streets, and many times we feel really lonely. The sense of belonging is not there. We feel it when we're together, but outside in the streets, it's not there. So when you ask me what I'm fighting for, I was born in a family. My dad very much loves football, which is soccer for Americans. So we watch football each and every day. And I wanted to go to a football game. We went to one football game in Israel, and it was very difficult because people were standing, chanting stuff, saying Hatikva, holding the Israeli flag, and I didn't feel it's mine. It's not mine. It doesn't speak about me. It doesn't speak to me. And when I think of what I'm fighting for, it is that sense of belonging that maybe someday I can go to a football game and I can stand with all of the people in there, chant something that I feel belongs to me and speaks about me, but also belongs to Alonli and speaks to Alonli. That is the kind of thing I am fighting for. It is belonging. It is feeling really home at the only place you call home.
Aloni, I want to ask you the same question, but maybe I'll add something to it. I feel a lot of Jewish people in Israel and also American Jews are fighting for some idea of Israel that they had, that it is a democracy, that it is a place where everyone can be who they want to be, and that it is a place where, it's this pink magical place where gays can live freely. And then gays can't get married. And then if you're a Palestinian living in Gaza, you have no rights and you can't vote. And if you're a Palestinian living in the 48 borders, you are being stripped down at the airport. So we realize that that's not the reality. So I want to ask you, as you've known that that is not the reality for a long time, what are you fighting for? What are you trying to save?
Wow, thank you. I am losing my voice. It is the fourth time we're speaking an event today, and maybe the 30th time in the last 12 days. So thank you so much. I don't know what this is.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
It's a strong mint, but it's the winter mint that is kind of cinnamon flavor. So
All right. I will take it afterwards. I will say that I want to save something that is a bit elusive in Israel, but it exists, and it is the feeling of home. And maybe it's tough to see from outside. Sometimes a lot of people are actually writing us, go back to Poland. My family is actually not from Poland. I get it quite a lot in Twitter, go back to Poland, right? But it's not that. But this is the only home we have. This is literally the only home we have. And I was born at the day the first Intifada broke. I had my bar mitzvah really in the month of the second Intifada. When I was a child, my mom didn't allow my twin brother and me to go on buses because buses exploded back home. I knew friends that died in those attacks. I was very afraid to imagine what it would mean for me to go to the army. I didn't go eventually. I was living, and I'm still living one reality that has never stopped for me. You know what? Even there was one man leading us through this entire reality, through the 90s until now. Netanyahu is there. And despite of all that, that's my only home. And a sense of belonging, as Rula is speaking about, it is not something that can be changed or that can be thrown away because you don't agree with the way of the country. It is still my society. It is still my home. And I want to save it. I want to save it not only because I'm standing and I'm opposing very bad things that our country is doing, not only because I'm standing in solidarity with Palestinians, and I'm proud of doing that. I am proud of doing it. But I also have my own interest in this, and it is my home and my society, and it is my family, and it is my future, because the conversation right now around our generation is immigrating out of Israel, is not continue living there. No one sane person around us believes that there's a future to this place. And this is heartbreaking. It is so heartbreaking to hear my own twin brother, having 2 children now, telling me, why will I raise my children here? What, am I insane? My partner, which is not Israeli, also says, why after 10 years we live in Israel, why are we staying here? And I know at this point, I don't have sensible or reasonable answers to him. I only have emotional answers to him. He says reasonable things, logical things that are making a lot of sense, that it's not reasonable to live there. And I say, I want to stay because I believe in this place, because this is my home, because I still want to fight and I still have the power in me to fight. And it's a very tough conversation, very tough realities around us. But still, it's the only home, the only home we have.
And even after 7 years, even after 7 years here, I still go, when I say back home, I mean Israel. And for me, even being here 7 years, I still ask myself, should I go back? When am I going back? It's this feeling of being ripped from your home is part of this reality. So immigration is not going to solve it. You can tell your brother.
And actually, if I'm allowed to, and something you said, because you did touch upon the question of concepts. And we meet here quite a lot when we speak, especially with the Jewish community here. People, we feel, put a lot of weight on us with this expectation that we will save something that they used to believe in, right? This very beautiful pink Israel, the land of milk and honey, this innovative kind of country that is being a safe haven to Jewish people. And I'm sorry, I really am sorry if we come here and we are being a bit of a party pooper, or we are saying tough things, and we do know that sometimes we do have tough things, but we do feel that A, it is our lives that are in the game here, our lives that are on the table, and B, we did hit this historic junction where it is time to decide. Do we want to continue having miserable life, tough existence in the name of ideas that have failed? Or do we choose the tough new road that has a lot of uncertainty in it, of having equality to all people, of having freedom to all? And I think that it is time to make the bold decisions. It is time to decide that this land belongs to all of us together. It cannot continue being this land of death and bloodshed and destruction and oppression. It must be a home for all of us, or eventually it will not be home for any of us.
Thank you. So in this reality, sorry. So as you know, Trump has been reelected or elected again. And in the reality here as well is a path that this country is going down on as well. So I want to ask you a tough question. As people here brace for possible abortion bans, for mass deportations, for an attack on democracy that has already started to come in with legislation, why should we invest in you? Why should American Jews or Americans at all put their energy and money in standing together?
Yeah. Well, first of all, Mabruk for having Trump. I don't know. Like, we need to laugh about something. Like, we need to look at other people's problems and say you have bigger problems, you know. So you have a bigger problem. That's a fact. But then we realize that your problem is our problem, okay? And our problem is your problem, yes. That is a fact. Every decision made within the US government affects our lives back home. Israel, Palestine, it affects our life. It doesn't, no matter what kind of a decision, whatever decision is made in here affects our lives. And what happens back home with us is very much debated here in different rooms, different places, with different politicians. When this war started, the polarization that happened within your societies, communities, same community, different community, was huge. Families stopped talking to one another. Friends stopped talking to one another. People who would go together to the university started demonstrating against one another, okay? This is how big what happened back home for us, you know, did to you. And it means that what happens here is connected to what happens for us back home in the same way. There is a new alliance, and it's a very dangerous one, and it is Bibi Trump. And these people are not ashamed to bring their ideas to destroy everything we have worked for here for you and back home for us. They have ideas of supremacy, of, you know, of who is more worthy or who is less, and they already, you know, have huge declarations of what will be happening to you and also to us. The first thing Trump said when he got, you know, when he won, is he said, if there will not be a hostage deal, the Middle East will burn. Now, the Middle East is already burning, like we don't need his kind of declarations, but that was the first thing he said when he found out that he was elected. Okay, that was the kind of celebration he did. And it was him saying that the connection between Israel and the US is a very powerful one, and it will not be disconnected. So what we need to do, and that is why you need us also, and we need you, is to build another alliance of the people. People living in Israel, Palestine, and people living here, also in the US, because they know what they want to do. They know their agenda. They know who's the enemy for them. We need to also know the enemy for us. And that alliance is a huge danger to all of us and everything we have been working for. And that is why, and I would say it, when we come here, we are welcomed in different communities. Jewish communities, Palestinian communities, Arab, Muslim communities, because when we come, we speak about our reality and we speak about how we organize people despite everything that's happening back home. How we are able to go out to the streets to grow, to be bigger and bigger despite everything that's happening back home. So this is a kind of alliance that must continue and become stronger, because it is a way to fight back and resist that lunatic people that we and you have right now in power.
Okay, so I have.
Thank you for these. We're both like, yeah.
So I have a few questions here from people, and feel free to raise your hand or wave if you'd like to present yourself with this question. This is a question for you, Rula. What do you need from Jews right now? What do you need Jews to understand about your life as a Palestinian Israeli citizen? What do you need Jews to understand about this moment?
Wow. I've never been asked this question. No, really, I've never been asked this question. I really need to think about it. What do I need from people? Well, I do need you to understand that you cannot give up. You cannot give up on people. You cannot give up on organizing people. And you cannot be in a despair. There's no way to be in despair. This is not the moment. It is the moment to understand that there is a huge, huge opportunity to change the Middle East. It is there. And what you can do, especially Jewish communities, with the influence and power and the well-organized communities that you have, is to push forward for a solution for the people living back home. There is a huge opportunity right now because politicians, Arab, Saudi, I can't say it in English in the correct way, Saudi Arabia, yes. Saudi Arabia is in the game of wanting a normalization with Israel. And the only way it may happen is if there will be an independent Palestinian state for my people and real equality for me within the Israeli society. So what you can really do right now is to organize people, your communities, to demand from your people in power in the Congress and in the Senate to push for a solution that says that it is time to change history and to take action, not just to stop this war, but to stop all the wars that would come by declaring and pushing towards an independent Palestinian state, because it is about time for us to be free and for us to be equal. That is one thing you can do from him, and you do have the power.
Thank you. Another question. Earlier, you spoke of needing allies in U.S. politics and cause the one in trouble. Wait. And sorry about this. It's cursive writing. Yes, sir.
Earlier, when you presented earlier this evening, I may have misheard, but you said that you might need allies. You might need to be sound like rescued, or U.S. Politicians to put pressure on the government if the government targets you. That's what I understood. And I wondered how we might help. It sounds like a smaller task than changing the whole government, getting a few advocates.
Thank you. So you're referring to what we described before as kind of a crackdown of our government on our activity and the democratic freedoms and spaces in Israel. It will not be news to you that under this shock doctrine and trauma that our society faces, the government is trying to push a lot of very anti-democratic legislation that narrows down freedoms, that especially targets the Palestinian society in Israel. Rula talked about the persecution. Yes, we had thousands of cases of either Palestinian students in Israel or Palestinian teachers or Palestinian workers in the public sector that even could write, "Don't kill the children in Gaza because all children are innocent." They would be called into a hearing, fired from their workplaces, or being expelled from school and being blamed by the police in supporting terrorism. They would be taken away, blindcuffed, handcuffed, and then being pictured under the Israeli flag, putting it on all social media and in the media, sending a message to Palestinians: know your place. Don't say anything. Don't be active. And this is just an example of a lot of the internal things that are happening right now in our society. Also, having back the judicial overhaul. They're pushing it tomorrow morning. They're going to vote in renewing, about the government, in renewing some of the legislations that are attacking the Supreme Court and the judicial system in Israel. Some of it is directed at standing together, because we managed to raise a lot of aid to support people in Gaza, because we were resisting a lot of what happens in the war. They are targeting our legal entity, they are targeting some of our activists, and we are afraid. We are afraid that they will have the ability to try and prevent us from continuing working. This is why we're looking, A, for support, real concrete support, to be stronger, to have more abilities, to be bigger in what we do in Israel, and this is a request to you. And B, allies, supporters, connections here, and this is why we are meeting also with politicians and ambassadors here. Yes, the Israeli government is not easy to influence, but they still care what people say about them in the world, what people are pressuring them, and it is good for us to have these partnerships here that can open up spaces for us.
This is a very specific question. What can Americans do to help kids in Gaza and the West Bank?
Very briefly. A, there are amazing, amazing, amazing organizations that are active, especially in Gaza, but also in the West Bank, including UNRWA, right? The one that the Israeli government tries to shut down. And they're doing work that is needed there. The work like saving literal children that lost their parents and need shelter right now, work of giving food to children, work of giving shelter in the West Bank for, a lot of children that are also facing daily dangers there. Support these organizations if you can. Support their work, spread out their message, try and make it known that Palestinian children are not safe right now. They're not safe, not only in Gaza, but also in the West Bank, which has been, faced the deadliest year in more than 20 years in the West Bank. Not only, by the way, by settlers' violence, but also because of the IDF and a lot of these attacks there. And I do think that we do need to remember that you are also a country that is an active side in this war, an active side in this war. And if you really want to ask yourself, and I know a lot of people here in this room, but also in this country, they care about Israel. They care about Israelis. They want to be friends of the Israeli people. But this is the time to redefine what does it mean to be a good friend of the Israeli people. If you care about the Israeli people, you must care about the Palestinian people. It must go together. It is inseparable in this way. You want to save Israeli children, save also Palestinian children. This is the only way to move forward.
I have so many questions. I tried to give you all the how can we help, but they were all very specific. So these are not of the same category.
So before I read these, I kind of want to connect to these how can we help questions. And specifically, you're on this tour now. Tell us about what are your goals for this tour and how do they tie into your plans for 2025?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
So, briefly, we had 3 goals from coming here. The first one is money, of course. We are a grassroots movement. We have membership in our movement. We have grown. Today we have more than 6,000 paying members back home, friends, from Standing Together. But our message has also grown wider to the US, Canada, Europe, and even Australia. And there we also have friends of Standing Together who are monthly paying members to the movement. But still, a grassroots movement that needs to do a lot of work in the system that we live in needs a lot of money. So first one is to donate, to bring our voice, to let other people, know of our work and what we do. So maybe other people want to donate to our work. That is the first thing. The second thing, we are here because we feel when we come to a room, it opens a place and a space for people to sit down and talk, for communities to sit down and talk, and for communities to start to organize. It somehow makes it easier for people when they listen to, a Jewish and a Palestinian than to listen to organization, a local organization in here. And we want to build more alliances between communities, but us with you is been here because we understand that the next 4 years are going to be difficult for all of us. And the third one is on the political level. We ask you, but we also meet with politicians, and we ask them to bring concrete, suggestions. We demand a ceasefire, a stop to this war, yes, but we also demand from them to understand that this period is very crucial and there can be a huge change in the Middle East if there would be a political solution pushing towards having an independent Palestinian state that will be also the opening for having real peace and real security for the people living in Israel. These are the 3 things we are doing in here.
Can I add one small thing?
Yes, please add one more thing.
Just because there's also a local group that you can join. I think it's very special because I look at this room and there are not only Jewish people in this room, there are not only Americans that are not either Jewish or Palestinian, they're not only Palestinians, it's a mixed room. And it's very interesting after these 14 months to be sitting in a mixed room of people that care about the same thing and maybe couldn't really find themselves in shared spaces in this very tough issue. And I think what we're also trying to create here with the local chapters of Friends of Standing Together is to bring people to stand together for the same causes from different communities. And if you are living in this area, please join the Bay Area of Friends of Standing Together. It's also very, very important.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, so I'll just echo Naor. If you're interested in joining, there's a QR code at the table, both for the Standing Together group, also for the general Standing Together movement, and also for donation, but it will be repeated in a moment. Another question that came up. Is Standing Together committed to supporting the It's Time coalition? The It's Time coalition of peace movements in Israel, and how do you see the coalition benefiting the movement itself? הגיע הזמן.
And how do we see the coalition work?
How do you see the coalition benefiting from the movement from Standing Together?
So It's Time coalition, maybe it's worth explaining. It's Time, הגיע הזמן, is a coalition of around 17 organizations that are working together around raising a voice for peace and organizing, like I would say, peak moments of mobilization of the Israeli public around the demand for peace. It started on the very big conference of the 1st of July in Tel Aviv. Around 5,000 people came to this big stadium, and it moved on to this journey for peace a week ago, and it will also have another peak moment in April. Standing Together is one of the core members of this coalition, and of course we are very committed, and we are kind of a backbone also in the organizational capacity we give to this coalition. In general, it's very important for us to work in coalitions and to build partnerships, even if it means that we are cooperating with forces that are not the closest to us, that we put on stage. Sometimes we organize a rally that we put all the effort, all the organizing, all the money, all the work. People will there in the crowd will only wear purple shirts of Standing Together, but it will be important for us to put on stage speakers that will create width, that will bring other voices and widen the tent, because we cannot win this fight alone. We need partners, and this is a strategy question. We are not here to be pure, we're here to build power.
I think before we come closer to a close, I want to ask you if there's anything else that you want to bring up, anything else you want to share at this moment you think we should hear?
I don't know, maybe I want to just say something about, we touched this, but one of the most amazing things we had in this year is the ability to not only point on the direction we want to see in reality, not only to resist the very, very, very bad and negative things that happen on our land, but also to be able to see change happening with our own eyes and done by our own hands. It happened when we went and blocked the settlers and confronted the settlers that set aid trucks on fire and blocked for weeks and months the aid to Gaza. And we built the humanitarian guard that put 1,000 of our members in confrontation with the settlers, forcing the police to come, not because they cared about setting Palestinian aid trucks on fire, but they cared about Israeli citizens confronting other Israeli citizens, and that was our strategy. And we managed, since May 27, we managed to make sure that all trucks that are coming from Jordan and the West Bank are going safely to Gaza, and that was a concrete change we created in reality. That was a victory we created in reality. Thank you. And then moving to raise aid ourselves, calling upon Israeli citizens and especially Palestinian citizens that were silenced until then to raise real aid. That was real change in reality. And the last thing, just a second before we went on a plane to the US, after months we put a lot of pressure on the media, and we did WhatsApp campaigns on specific media personalities to say it is not reasonable that for 14 months you're not showing one story that is coming out of Gaza, that we as a public do not know one name of a victim, one personal story, a family, something that happened. We only see the stories of the soldiers and we don't know what is done by us and by our name and is happening 50 minutes from our home if we live in Tel Aviv. After we didn't manage to move the media and to start showing it, we decided to buy 200 billboards in Israel. And we put on them pictures from Gaza of children holding empty pots, begging for food, of the rebels. But not only that. Next to them, we put pictures of military cemeteries showing the fresh graves. And next to it, we put pictures of the hostages that are still neglected by our government. And we titled it on all the different pictures in the entire country billboards. It's either we end the war or the war will end us all. And this is how we connect the interest, connect the stories of how we all lose in very different ways, but we can all change reality in the benefit of all of us. And it does give us a lot of pride, a lot of pride to be able to tell you here, after 14 months, it's not that we only resisted, we were able to create changes in reality, maybe small, maybe not enough, but we are able to act and enact change.
I think there is a lot to learn from your movement. I think going back to why should we invest in you, I think this is almost like a laboratory of social change and a laboratory of grassroots movements, because you don't just settle for values and ideas, you actually get your people and the activists to get involved with their bodies. I think that's a huge thing, collecting the food, standing in the junction, letting the truck go through. It goes beyond just ideas and words to actual movement, and I think that's very inspiring. And I think as some of us might enter a whole era of activism, there's a lot to learn from these guys. So thank you for being here with us and sharing your activities and your brave movement. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Today will be our last day in the US. Tomorrow, I'm sorry. Tomorrow, I can't count.
Another day.
Another day, yes. But I do want to say something that we see in this room, and it is very crucial to the work. Never never give up on people. In order to make change, you need people with you. You need to organize them. And it is not an easy task to go and to talk to people and to convince them and to take them with you and to speak of the benefits of what we can have and the struggles is not an easy job. And I'm saying that because we are just at the beginning of years that is not going to be good to many of us. So you need also to have the power and the resilience to understand that it is a lot of work and you have a few years where you need to talk to your people and organize them. And if not, many of us will lose. So again, understand that there is a huge power within people and never give up on people. Thank you so much.
I'd like to pass it on to Nadav, who helped organize this whole tour, and Yael from SF Bay for Peace and from this local Standing Together chapter to take us through the next steps.
Hi, everybody. I'm Nadav from Standing Together. I'm together with Roland Alonli and other wonderful people. I'm on the leadership of Standing Together.
And I'm Yael. I've been organizing with SFA for Peace and the local chapter of Standing Together, of Friends of Standing Together.
What we want to talk about is just a few ways that you can take action now after this wonderful talk. How you can also take part in what we're doing. First, I think we'll talk about the local Friends of Standing Together chapter.
Cool. So I heard a lot of questions about this earlier today. We did a lot more things like quite a few months ago at this point. We're kind of reorganizing and ramping up to like do more things more regularly. Like Noor was saying, there will be a QR code on the computer and also like to like join our WhatsApp group, sorry. And I also feel like there were a lot of more really good questions here in my hand that we didn't get to talk about that like I can answer, Rob can answer. Like, let's hang out and talk about this. We'll stay tuned, join the WhatsApp group. I feel like there's more coming this year.
Yeah, and Alonli, Wula, and I will stay a bit longer also to talk to you in this space. But another really important way that you can take action at this moment is to donate to Standing Together. Because Standing Together is a movement of people, it's a mass movement. We have 12 local chapters, 14 student chapters, 6,000 members who pay monthly dues in Israel at a sum of their choice. Abroad as well, we have 3,500 Friends of Standing Together members who pay monthly dues at a level of their choice. And we train and have basically an activist school for hundreds of activists every single year. We have 4 community centers. We do protests every single week, sometimes multiple times a week. This is a mass movement with hundreds of thousands of people behind it. This is a huge, huge endeavor, and it's also an endeavor that requires funds. So I do want to take this moment that if you did connect to what we are doing, if you'd like to support this work, and it's not the only work that needs to be supported in Israel-Palestine, that is for sure, and Alonli talked about a few of other organizations, and there are many ways to take part in what is happening now and to take part to make a positive change. But one of the ways is also, we believe, to donate to Standing Together. So there are various ways to do that. 2 simple ways are in the purple booklets that you got. The first page has 2 QR codes. One to make a one-time donation and one to become a monthly friend of Standing Together. Like I said, there are 3,500 people who already have joined this. This could be as small as a cup of coffee a month, and it makes a huge, huge difference to our ability to actually make change because we are not a movement backed by billionaires. We are not backed by any foreign governments at all. We don't receive this kind of money. We're a movement of people, and everyone in this room is also part of this or can be part of this as well. So we need all the help we can get. It really takes more than a village. It takes many villages across the world. So please consider joining, consider making a one-time donation. We would put every dollar to good use. activating our thousands and thousands of activists in order to create a change in Israel-Palestine, to stop the war, stop the occupation, bring the hostages back home, and achieve Israeli-Palestinian peace. It's in our hands, but we need all the hands that we can get at this point. So thank you very much, and I think we'll be staying around a bit more, and thank you all for coming.
And was Pat going to come up or no?
All right, so
Sorry,
before you get up, after this material talk, we thought we would leave with a bit more spiritual moment. So first of all, there's an artistic contribution by Yael and David Solnit with patches that you can take at the table going outside. But also I'd like to welcome Rabbi Kat Zavis from Beit Tikkun, who co-sponsored this event, to kind of send us off with a few words.
Thank you both so much for such an amazingly inspiring talk. And more importantly than the amazing, inspiring talk is the work that you do. Thank you. There's a quote, it's one of my favorite quotes in Psalm 85, "Loving kindness and truth meet, and justice and peace kiss." When I think of the divine source of the universe, I think of it as the transformative power of the universe that makes possible the transformation from that which is to that which can and ought to be. We heard tonight from two people who truly embody that divine energy, making possible the transformation from this horror that we're living in to the possibility of a world of justice and truth. What an amazing opportunity to hear from you. Thank you. So may their courage, their audacity, their dreams, and their vision inspire each and every one of us to embody the divine transformative power of the universe that lives within each of us. May they give us the courage and audacity to take action, to stand for truth, justice, and peace, so we can see and bring forth that day when loving kindness and truth meet, and justice and peace kiss. Have a good night.
Oh, you're getting a picture.
Which picture is the most important?
Who is taking the picture? Taking the picture. Who is taking the picture? Who is taking the picture? You want to show me? No. Oh, you're getting